If you root for a team in the NL East or you just watch baseball every day, you're probably aware of the insane 13-12 game played between the Phillies and Nats this past week. It was full of tons of lead changes, huge home runs, and pretty bad pitching. But it also unearthed a memory for me about a similar game with similar opponents. Though the Nats would prevail in this game, they won't be featured in the game I'm talking about today. This game took place back in 2012 with the Phillies and their division rival, the Atlanta Braves. Some of you may remember this, but if you don't, you're in for an absolute roller coaster ride of a game. It features some players you'll definitely recognize and some you probably forgot about. And I'll be here to fill you in on the stats and their performance the entire run of the way. It's tons of lead changes and just a really entertaining watch. So let's talk about it. As always, if you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out and we're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers. Thanks again for your support. All right, let's waste no more time. I want to preface this entire video by saying that this game didn't really matter. The Philadelphia Phillies ended the year 81-81 as a 500 team, and the Braves would be in the wildcard game with 94 wins. But this game was an absolute roller coaster and a joy to watch over again. At the date of this game, the Phillies sat as a 500 team, while the Braves were 4 games up at 14-10. Both trailed the Washington Nationals by under 4 games, so these were vital interdivision matchups to win. These two teams had just one matchup before this game in 2012, which was a 4-2 Phillies win the day before. They looked poised to win again, sending Roy Halladay to the mound. His numbers through the first 5 starts of the year were impressive to say the least. But taking the bump before Roy was Tommy Hanson, an oft-forgotten effective starter for Atlanta. Hanson had some pretty good years as an Atlanta Brave, and he'd start this game off strong with an easy first inning, only surrendering a hit to Placido Polanco, then striking out Shane Victorino and getting Hunter Pence to fly out. Hanson's numbers as an Atlanta Brave were impressive to say the least, especially from 2009 to 2011. But as I mentioned before, his opponent for the day would be Roy Halladay, and that's no easy feat. Halladay was coming off in April where he pitched to a 1.95 ERA, and it was looking like another regular season for the now aging Doc. He would give up 2 hits in the first inning to Martin Prado and Freddie Freeman, but would quickly escape thanks to a ground ball double play from Brian McCann. You'll be hearing more about McCann later. But for the time being, Tommy Hanson and Roy Halladay would trade zeros up until the top of the 3rd inning, where Hanson ran into trouble against the Phillies. It all started with Jimmy Rollins, who was an interdivision killer for years. Trust me, I know this as a Mets fan. He gets things going with a leadoff single, followed by another hit from Placido Polanco, and a follow-up single from Shane Victorino. These 3 were really good contact bats in the middle of the lineup for this team. Hunter Pence would walk after a Shane Victorino stolen base, and then Lance Nix, a name you might have forgotten, would double deep to right field to clear the bases, making it 4-0 in the 3rd. Roy Halladay would get right back to work, striking out the first 2 batters of the 3rd and going 1-2-3, getting Michael Bourn to ground out to second. This game was looking all Phillies really early in the game. As if the game wasn't locked down enough with their ace on the mound, Roy Halladay was also 107-0 when given a 4-run lead in his entire career. And things were going to get worse before they got any better. Tommy Hanson would exit in the 4th inning, and Christian Martinez in his stead would give up a single to Ty Wingington, and then back-to-back doubles to Carlos Ruiz and Freddie Galvis. Galvis was in year 1 of his now 10-year career that's still happening today, and this was just his 6th career RBI. But just as the game looked locked up for Philadelphia, something strange happened, starting with the Chipper Jones single to center field. Now, nothing seemed to miss, but then there was another single, this time by Eric Hinske. Tyler Pasternak followed up and he singled. It was the first time that season that Roy Halladay allowed 3 consecutive hits. After getting Juan Francisco to fly out, Michael Bourn stepped up and drilled a single to right field, the 4th hit of the inning and the first run for the Braves coming across. Martin Prado followed with an infield single of his own, narrowly beating it out to make it 6-2. This brought up the then 22-year-old Freddie Freeman with pretty poor career numbers against Roy Halladay to this point. He would fly out softly to the second baseman Freddie Galvis, and the Phillies were 1 out away from escaping a serious jam. Standing in their way was veteran slugger Brian McCann. Halladay would miss inside with a fastball on the first pitch, and Charlie Manuel looks pretty bored, which is weird. But then he'd throw one right down the heart of the plate to get even 1-1, but he'd miss outside with his next pitch, and then disaster.
Swing and a drive, belted right, it's a grand slam and we're tied!
Brian McCann hit just the 4th grand slam ever given up by Roy Halladay, with Evan Longoria hitting the last one back in 2008. Interestingly enough, he was then poked in the eye by Michael Bourne when they missed their high five after he crossed the plate, and he would have some pretty bad eye troubles going into the next inning and for the rest of the game. Next inning saw Livan Hernandez come to the mound, who's mostly known as a Washington National and Montreal Expo, but in his age 37 season, he was a middle reliever for the Atlanta Braves, and he'd come in clutch here, giving them a 1-2-3 inning on a couple groundouts and a flyout to preserve the game headed into the bottom of the 6th. This would be Hernandez's final year in the bigs, as he pitched to a 4.94 ERA with the Braves. Despite getting battered around for 6 runs just the inning before, Roy Halladay would be left in for the 6th inning, and the Phillies would pay the price for this decision. First with an Eric Hinske single, and then a great at-bat by Tyler Pastornicky, where he hangs tough against Doc for 9 pitches, working a full count and then finally dunking one into right field for a double. This sets the stage for Jason Heyward to enter the game via a pinch hit and single to right field, bringing home 2 more runs and officially completing the Braves' comeback as they now lead the game 8-6. Roy Halladay gave up 8 earned runs, the most he had allowed since surrendering 9 on May 5th of 2007 against the Texas Rangers. The 12 hits he gave up was just 1 below his career high, and the grand slam he allowed to Brian McCann was the first homer he allowed in 6 starts that season. Eric O'Flaherty took the mound next for the Atlanta Braves, who was coming off an absolutely stellar 2011 season. He'd be equally dominant by the end of 2012, but his season got off to a pretty rocky start. He walked Ty Wingington on 4 pitches and then let up a single to John Mayberry Jr. And just when it looked like the Braves were going to pull away with this game, up stepped Carlos Chooch Ruiz. This is where he takes over in the game. You're going to be seeing a lot of him for the rest of this, and here's why.
Driven deep left, and just like that, the Phillies are back in front.
From the beginning of the inning to Chooch's home run, the Phillies' winning percentage spiked from 25% to 70%. And Chooch wasn't done in this game. We'll be hearing more from him later. Next in line for the Braves for the bottom of the 8th was Chris Medlin, who'd go on to enjoy his best season in the bigs in 2012, splitting time between the bullpen and the rotation. He'd get 2 quick groundouts from Placido Polanco and Shane Victorino to keep the game close headed into the 9th inning. Or so we thought. Hunter Pence would work a full count after 6 pitches and ground one up the middle that was booted by Tyler Pastornicky, and if it couldn't get worse enough for him, he'd boot the next ground ball that came to him from Ty Wigginton. John Mayberry would walk on 4 pitches, and suddenly Chris Medlin was stuck in a bases-loaded situation, and look who came up to bat. Oh God, not again. Chooch hits one sharply down the right field line to clear the bases, and the Phillies have pulled ahead 12-8 in the top of the 8th inning, and all hope for Atlanta is looking lost. According to Fangraphs data, the Braves had a 2.3% chance of winning the game at one point in the 5th when they were down 6-0, and they had that same percent chance of winning after falling down 12-8 at this point. This would be Chooch's 7th RBI of the game, besting his previous career high by 2. He was the first Philly to drive in as many runs since Jason Worth had an 8 RBI game against the Blue Jays in 2008. The Phillies' record when Ruiz drove in at least 3 runs was 15-0. But much like the Phillies do nowadays, they sent somebody to the mound in a high-leverage situation that probably wasn't the right pick. Jose Contreras and his 7.36 ERA took the mound for the bottom of the 8th and immediately let up a single to start the inning, followed by a booted ball by Jimmy Rollins. He'd strike out Matt Diaz after letting him into a full count, but then Tyler Pastornicky would make up for his multiple errors in the top of the inning by bringing home a run and making it a 12-9 game. The guy who sent home Dan Uggla on that play was none other than future manager Brian Snitker. But the bad times would roll on for the Phillies bullpen as Contreras would walk Jason Heyward on 6 pitches, prompting Charlie Manuel to bring in this guy, Michael Schwimmer. Never heard of him? Me neither. He walked Michael Bourne on 4 pitches, and none of them were particularly close. The walk forced in a run to make it 12-9 and set up Martin Prado with a bases-loaded opportunity, and he would ground one softly up the middle to bring home 2 more runs and make it a tie game at 12. Remember when the Braves had a 2.7% chance of winning? Once they took a 13-12 lead on this Freddie Freeman sac fly, that winning percentage jumped up to 87.1%. Just to show how crazy this game was, the Phillies had a 6-0 lead at one point that was blown, and then subsequently a 12-8 lead that was also blown. Not a fun night for Phillies fans. Taking the mound for the Braves for a save opportunity was Craig Kimbrell, participating in his first full season as a big leaguer. He was an absolute rookie sensation at this point and had yet to blow a save in 8 opportunities. In 21 games the year prior, he gave up 1 run in 20.2 innings, but the Phillies would get to him early with a walk and stolen base from Juan Pierre. Jimmy Rollins would get called out on strikes on a tough call on a full count, and Polanco would ground out to short to move the runner to third. With the Braves 1 out away from finally escaping this game, Shane Victorino flied one down the left field line that was nearly in play and catchable, but sadly went into the stands, before grounding one narrowly up the middle and reaching first just in time to beat out Tyler Pasternicki's throw and once again leave this game tied. Kimbrell would quickly bounce back and strike out Hunter Pence, but it would be his first blown save as a major leaguer. And this game was headed to the bottom of the 9th, tied at 13. And this Phillies fan is having a lot of fun. Can't you tell? The Phillies bullpen was back at it again in the bottom of the 9th, surrendering a 1-out single to Chipper Jones, another to Jack Wilson, and then another walk to Jason Hayward before Michael Bourn flew out to shallow center field with the bases loaded and 2 outs to send the game to extras. No heroics for the Braves yet as they sent Johnny Venters to the mound in the top of the 10th, who had an absolutely dominant run over 3 years in Atlanta that many forget about. He makes quick work of the Phillies in the top of the 10th, striking out Ty Wigginton and John Mayberry Jr., and getting Chooch, who was having an awesome game, to ground out softly in front of the catcher for a 1-2-3 inning. But the Phillies bullpen finally responds, and Brian Sanchez, who narrowly escaped the bases loaded jam in the bottom of the 9th, gets the Braves to go down 1-2-3, including a strikeout against Freddie Freeman and a flyout just shy of a home run from Brian McCann. No heroics yet, the game remains tied. The 10th inning was the first inning without a run scored since the 4th in this game. Chad Durbin, another name you probably haven't heard in a while, went 1-2-3 for the Braves in the top of the 11th to give the Braves another shot at walking this thing off in the bottom of the 11th. Dan Uggla attacked the first pitch from Brian Sanchez for a single to set the stage for his buddy Chipper Jones, the longtime captain of the Atlanta Braves in his final season. Jones went down quickly 0-2 on 2 nice cuts and took a couple curveballs in the dirt to even it out at 2-2. He sawed off the inside fastball and then found the hanging slider in the middle of the zone, but was just a little bit too early, yanking it just right of the foul pole. He's thinking, man, I wish I could have that one back. He'll take the high fastball, but then he'll find another hanger in the middle of the zone to send everybody home.
Swing drive, right center field. The Braves have won it!
Chipper Jones's walk-off home run against the Phillies was his first since May 17 of 2006, and it was the 8th of his career. This was the first time the Phillies lost a game where they scored 12 runs since 1969. And it was the highest scoring extra inning game in the majors since Cleveland beat Kansas City 15-13 in 10 innings in 2006. It was an absolute roller coaster ride, and a fitting end came with the retiree in Chipper Jones. Not only was this not the last walk-off home run of the year for Chipper Jones, it's also not the last time he broke Philadelphia Phillies fans' hearts, with a 3-run walk-off home run to win the game 8-7 later in the season. Chipper Jones' last ride was pretty magical. I talked about it in my last video if you want to check that out. But that'll do it for this video. I'm the Jolly Olive, and I'll see you guys next time.